to begin with. I'm Steve. I'm the MD of Executive Connections. We've been going for well over 10 years now, providing career coaching and outplacement support. So these sessions are viewed by people who are in a job search mode. On one hand, they're also viewed by people in HR who are having to work with people who are being made redundant, unfortunately. So you want to go and have a look at the website if you haven't done so already. There's plenty of resource there. We produce a lot of resource, whether it be in articles, podcasts, downloadable bits and pieces. Again, you may have already seen that, but please have a look if you haven't. So we work with people all over. So again, as far as the recordings are concerned, we work with people in lots of different locations, and we sometimes help Brits move back to the UK. We sometimes work with people in the States who want to move to Australia. There's all sorts of different scenarios that we kind of work in to help people. So just basically then, just in terms of transferable skills, that's what we're going to look at a little bit today. Like I said, the questions you can ask can be related to this subject, or they can be totally unrelated. I'm very comfortable and relaxed about that. So I've got certain views about transferable skills, which I'll try not to let slip throughout this conversation, maybe until we get to the end, until we get to the discussion. I just think that things are different depending on the stages of your career and depending on what you're actually trying to do. So think about, and we can, I'm sure there's something we can send you as a result of this, following this conversation, to do with helping you to identify your transferable skills. I mean, some people would view this as kind of a little bit, how do I do this? Some people it's ABC stuff, very simple. So there are lots of different tools and methods you can do to kind of help you along the way with that. So why do you want to transfer? It can happen sometimes when someone reaches a certain point in their career where they want to completely change direction. It could involve another corporate role. It could involve starting your own business. It could involve doing a bit of consultancy, interim, non-executive director bits of work. And that's where it comes into aligning it with what you want to do and what you want to love, really. Sometimes doing what we love doesn't fall into focus until certain things happen in our lives, and then we realize what our priorities are. So that's when it can happen sometimes as well, at a point of transition. Then maybe think about, any knowledge or skill gaps that you've got with regard to that. We're talking about the aspirational piece now, what you want to transfer over to, and how realistic that is for you. So you've got to, whatever this new position is you're looking at, or this new sector that you're looking at is, you've got to make the effort to go out and get the new knowledge that's there, and you can do lots of research, thankfully, these days with AI, as long as you're, editing it and you're reading it properly and you're reading it back again and again and fact checking it and everything else. I think you can do a lot of good research regarding getting into any new role, sector, whatever it actually might be. So you've got certain universal competencies that you can apply across different roles. Now, it'd be good to hear if you feel so inclined. I can't see the chat from the view I'm in at the moment, but if you put in what you view as maybe, maybe transferable skills, your own transferable skills, perhaps, then, put them in the chat. Ones you see as being very generic, ones you see as being very specific, perhaps. Let me just bring up the chat a minute so I can put it over there and separately. Okay. So how do you tailor messages to move into that new direction? You won't forgive me for talking about LinkedIn, again, because it's one of those subjects that comes up over and over and over. But not just your CV, how you talk to people, how you articulate your value proposition, how your profile looks as well. So if you're starting a different change of direction, then think about how your profile is going to be realigned on LinkedIn. And I would suggest doing all this offline, whether you do it in Word document and then pick the right time to actually, okay, I'm launching into this now, make the changes online, rather than just doing it sort of piecemeal and people being rather confused about you as an individual and what your, and what your kind of corporate or role identity is. And we've talked about that a little bit there now. So what is it that you can do? Like I said, we've talked to people in the past in terms of coaching clients, they may come to us having a complete change. I do think the difference is there with transferable skills. If you are a candidate that's going for a new role and you're going to be up against candidates that have got suitable, relevant, recent background, and you're trying to break into that industry, that's a totally different challenge from aligning your transferable skills to something that's utterly different that you want to do. You know, you've been in a corporate role, let's say, and you've always loved pottery, and you've decided you're going to go off and do something like that. It's a totally different thing. So I think that essentially start off by, you know, engaging in posts and creating your own posts online as well. And they can be aligned towards the new positions that you're looking for as well, not just your existing skill sets, let's say. Start to, you know, get into some groups, start to learn a bit more about the new role that you're looking about. So I'm talking about transferable skills here in a couple of different ways, as if you are making a complete and utter change, or maybe you're moving to an allied or closely associated sector or role. Something as simple as, say, trying to move from private healthcare to the NHS or something like that, something that's pretty close. As I say, right through to doing something completely different. But you still got to align yourself for these roles, and you've still got to make the right connections. I would say if you're going to talk to people, then stay strong, stay resilient. You know, you've got to be prepared for some skepticism from recruiters and headhunters if you're putting yourself out for something totally different or even mildly different. You know, it really does merit taking a step back, sitting down, putting down the kind of questions, list them down that you think you might be asked, you know, and then what will be your answers? How will you confidently sort of bat away that question or that skepticism? How will you do that? And you've got to do that at the same time as demonstrating your enthusiasm to the new kind of role that you're looking at as well. So it can't all be about rote, robotic remembering of answers and all of that. I'm not saying that. That's got to be part of it. The other part is about how passionate you come across in those events. So again, you can do this with colleagues, friends, family, perhaps. I do believe in mock interviews. I also believe in recording them. I believe in making it happen over and over and over. You've got to practice to make perfect, whether it's transferable skills or not. I mean, in any job situation, actually, but particularly for, you know, transferable skills, you've got to come across in an interview scenario, assuming you get that far, you've got to come across almost better than the other candidates who've got the relevant background already. Otherwise, you're just always going to become second or third in that interview process, and that's not what we want to happen. I mean, I'll say, you know, mentoring and coaching, I assume you'd agree, are different, totally different things. You know, mentor would be to contact someone in the industry that you're looking at, and not just one person maybe, but a number of individuals, and just befriend these individuals and add some value to that relationship as well, in terms of what you can bring to the table with your sort of war stories about your career, and take on board, you know, take on board by like osmosis, just that conversational piece. It's what you won't learn by putting everything into AI or, you know, chat GPT or what have you. Having that human conversation and that human dialogue, you'll pick up the nuances, you'll pick up what's really required in that role. And not only that, you're going to pick up a really good contact. You're going to really pick up a good contact, and that's the point. It is important to keep getting a feel for how you are being perceived as well. So that's the other value of a mentor, someone who is valued and experienced within that particular industry that you're trying to break into. Coaching is different. That's obviously what we do, you know, but coaching is different. That's about helping you be the best version of yourself going forward, thinking about the questions you're going to ask, thinking about how you're going to describe your value proposition, how your personal brand is going to change, you know, how actually confident you're feeling when you're going for these roles that are slightly different and slightly outside of your usual comfort zone. Some people we've worked with, just a quick mention here, and one or two people here that have got to a point in their career where they've gone off and done something totally different, utterly different. But there's a fair few people here as well that would have moved to a slightly different role You know, and some people that have come from a different country as well. So, you know, let alone transferable skills, it is possible to sort of break into new markets. You need to be persistent, and I think it helps to have someone on your shoulder. But I would say that, wouldn't I? So look, have you got an industry you're looking to break into? Is that what today is about for you, or are you looking at just a little sort of step across? It may be something else that you've come onto the call about to ask, and obviously that's part and parcel of what today is all about. But just start to get up to date about your chosen industry. If you're targeting certain companies, remember you can go to Google News, and you can then choose to search for an organization that might have been involved in a recent merger or acquisition, some other piece of very, very up-to-date news that you can bring into a conversation or an interview process as well. And the skills development piece, I think it applies in certain, you know, in certain points of your career. I think that maybe it will apply to younger candidates to some extent, but I think that you will get to a point in your career, 50 plus, where, you know enough, for sure. You know enough. And I think that it's about then how do you realign, repackage, repurpose what you already know for that new piece going forward. We speak to people sometimes, and they think that going out and doing an executive MBA, you know, is going to automatically mean they're going to get interviews, you know, for example, and it's not always the case. Often it's about networking and how confident you will appear to the individuals that you're speaking with. The whole piece about self-assessment and adjusting is around, you know, again, have you got a mentor? Have you got a coach? Have you got somebody that you can talk to and bounce ideas around and get positive feedback, but honest feedback as well? So that's very, very important if you're looking to change and sort of transcend into something new. These links are actually in the chat. I think that it's always important for me to put this up because people watch the recordings. They often can't access the chat, obviously. So if you're HR, there's one link for you there. And if we haven't spoken or we haven't had a one-to-one and you want to get a space in my calendar to have a chat about your own situation, you don't feel comfortable kind of talking about it in detail here on this call, then you're more than welcome to have a conversation with me one-to-one. And yeah, feel free to book that. The link is in the chat. You can get directly onto that. So that's just a bit about transferable skills. It's kind of almost, it's a big subject, but in some ways it's a small subject. My take on it is anyone at senior level exec is going to always struggle if they're looking to get to a situation where they're up against candidates who've got relevant sector background. So you need to do a lot of work, a lot of homework, and a lot of preparation for this to make sure that you are really the strong candidate, you know, in that kind of situation. So I'll be happy to hear your views anyway. It'd be interesting to have a couple of questions, if not on this subject, then on any other challenges you've been facing. So that's what I'd like to do now. Just come back into the room. If you're able to put your camera on, great, particularly if you're going to ask a question. If it's not feasible for you, I understand and respect that. So let's stop the share and we'll come back to you guys. Okay. Here we are. Question time. Who'd like to kick off with a question either related to transferable skills or something totally different?
I don't mind kicking off, Steve, and it's not really a question. Good morning, everyone, by the way. It's not really a question at this stage. It's more just an acknowledgement of why I'm on here. Yes. So I'm looking for my next role. I'm a chartered accountant, so I'm very much pitching myself for CFO roles. Yes. And the reason I've joined this morning is exactly the idea of talking about what are transferable skills. I've always considered as an accountant that the core offering that I'm able to provide is a transferable skill in itself. And I always use the rule 80-10-10. 80% of my core offering is transferable, 10% would be sector learning, and 10% would be learning about the company and their processes and systems anyway. So even if you had sector experience when you were moving, you're still going to have to learn 10% about the company and what they do anyway. That's just something
Yes.
that I've sort of developed in my own thinking. So I think transferable skills is a very important subject, and it's how you are able to provide comfort to the employer that you can hit the ground running, I think. And I think you're right. I think the research piece, being able to ask the right questions, sensible questions about not just the sector but the company specifically, show that level of enthusiasm and interest, for me, I think goes a long way. But people might have different experiences and different challenges, and I think it will always be a challenge. It's just how you present yourself in a way that provides comfort.
I think so. People want to be confident, does in terms of the candidate. Do I like them? Do they fit in? Can they do the job? It kind of comes down to that kind of ultimate thought. But I think that you're right to pick up on a point there about the 80-10-10, as you call it, Mark. It's around what are the other candidates going to have as well, and what are the paradigms of either the recruiter or the hiring manager or the company. It's not always the recruiter that's say dictated that you must have XYZ sector experience. It can sometimes come from the organization. They may have just had a unfortunate experience with somebody who they took on outside of sector. It can happen. But having said that, I suppose it's arguable and debatable that there are, finance being one, that there are, and probably CIO level being another, that there are certain disciplines that transfer easier than others, to some degree. But I think you're right to identify that, and the point you made about it being how you present yourself, that comes over in terms of that kind of confident feeling and expecting to be asked questions, that might be challenging, and having answers in your pocket ready for those kind of questions as well. But certainly, it's certainly possible, and it's a good philosophy to have, for sure. But there may be. Trouble is, you'll never know it. There may be a kind of a prejudice towards someone who's got XYZ sector experience, but the recruiter headhunter is not going to tell you. You're going to be one of 6 people put forward. You might always end up being second or third in that scenario. You kind of might never know why, but it will have been because they wanted to submit a shortlist first and you were a good outlier. No one's going to talk to you as if you're an outlier, are they, in that context, when they're selling the roles. So
an option.
you could be an option. You could definitely be an option, but that means that it's one stage closer to them claiming their commission for when somebody.
That's right.
That's it. I don't want to be too cynical about it, bless them. But it's kind of, I think more and more of this day and age, staying strong, staying confident, staying resilient, the kind of things that used to come up in news feeds, every so often, but they're really, really paramount. I think they're very crucial, things now for people to sort of work on, not just that presentational piece, but which is really, really important as well. The elevator pitch and all that kind of collateral that is good to rehearse and practice as well. But yeah, it's a really good point. I'll take the 8-10-10. Thanks, Mark.
Steve, as another chartered accountant, can I add a bit to, Mark, from my experience, because I'm a few years older than that, further down the track. The lens I find that people look through is, first of all, the size of company that you've been working at. Because if you've been in a big company and you're looking at small companies, right, you're very unlikely to be seen at that, because they think you're used to having a support staff to do everything for you. You show leadership and things like that. Where the small company, you have to roll with, you have to keep a set of books yourself almost on that. So even by saying you're a CFO, in a sense, doesn't help. It's okay. So what size are they listed or unlisted companies? Are they quoted? If they're quoted, what size market are they on? I'm a part-time CFO of an Aquis listed. That's the lowest of the smallest of the 3 stock exchanges in the UK. You then have AIM, and then you've got the main market. So your experience on Aquis is different to your experience on AIM. And the experience on AIM is different to an experience on a fully listed company. Right? So when I get contacted, it's because it's because I'm on Aquis and somebody's looking for a CFO for Aquis. They're not looking for a CFO who's been from the main market. And then it's possibly related to transferable skills. But the next thing that people say, what type of CFO are you? So if they're private equity, they want someone who's experienced in buy and build, right? So they're on a 3-5 year thing. They want to buy companies, build it and sell it. And if your experience is not in buying and building companies, you're not going to get looked at. Doesn't matter how many times you apply and what relationship you have with headhunters, they're not going to put you forward for it. And if you apply directly to companies, it's the same. They want to de-risk it. So the next thing is, well, are you a fundraising CFO? And do you have a record of sequential raising of funds, right? And what happens with many of us is we've done a bit of buy and build, we've done a bit of fundraising, we've done a bit of turning around companies, right? And we've done a bit of keeping a good set of books, right? So all of them are transferable, but they don't have the focus that people are looking for in their next position. And so that's my experience. I'm at kind of the area now where my concern about transferable skills is for 20 years I stepped out of finance into the business. In multi-company, multi-function teams to bid large-scale infrastructure projects and public sector outsourcing. The thing is, we don't do it anymore. So if I write that that's what my experience is, that doesn't resonate with people who are saying, is he a buy and build? Is he a fundraiser? Is he operational? Etc. So I'm interested in what other people think, but that's the filters that I find I have to go through at the moment.
So there's almost like, there's subcategories depending on P&L size and whether you've been buy and build, and as you say, all of that kind of element.
Yeah, it is, because they want, first and foremost, they want someone who they think is going to be a good fit. So they understand us, they understand our stage in development, in the cycle of the business. They understand the limitations of resource, right? And that in a sense that you fully understand that before you go in. Not that you turn up and the first thing you say, where's my executive assistant? Where's my financial controller? Or whatever. And they said, well, there isn't one, it's you.
Some of that's a choice, isn't it? When you've got so much breadth of experience, you can choose to sort of define or align yourself more towards one than the other, or where your particular strengths might lie, or where your particular aspirations might lie. I'm not talking about just being just airy-fairy about it. You've got to be solid, and it's got to be based on grounded fact. But with so much background, you could decide at some point that that's your path. That particular one is your path. Whether it be buy and build or whatever it might be. People get into a few people want to get into the whole PE market, and I know there's so many people that have already done that, and that's often what the recruiters and headhunters are looking for. That they're often also looking for this kind of entrepreneurial flair. So I guess what I'm saying is, there are silos within the finance function, but you could possibly align yourself towards one or the other, and then really make a concerted effort towards that one if it was your own kind of aspirational piece. But anyway, Shahid, you had your hand up just now. Did you still want to? You are muted, sir.
Hi, apologies. It was just to I think reinforce the point the other two guys have made. Perhaps it's a challenge I've been facing where you've got so much potentially to offer, or there's so many different things you can go into, that I'm almost at a point now where I'm building a functional competence CV and almost trying to menuize it in a way that I can then say, okay, these skills are relevant for this role, pull those out, and then translate them into something that says, okay, here is my specific CV for that particular role. So again, it requires a different investment of effort and time, But I think that's the only way to break through. And that, I was just going to echo back on the earlier point you made. It's about the offering of skills, but it's about communicating them, and hopefully that they can see it. Because one thing I would guarantee is that sending a traditional CV where you're hoping that they'll pick out what you, oh, I need that skill, will never happen. And I'm talking obviously to people, I'm not trying to be blasé about it, but unfortunately it is about a very specific CV. And one of the other really funny things happened a little while ago was almost keep back all your detail and knowledge. Is if you're having a dialogue, maybe just have a one-pager that just summarizes some of the key things. And if they want to have a conversation, then you can continue it, and you're not then wasting their time or your time.
Yeah, I know a few people who do the one-pager routine. Not everyone, but it's certainly there.
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's a tangible option. It's there as a tangible option, definitely. People are searching for the perfect CV all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
and then everyone tries to create. I mean, I know for myself, you try and create the perfect CV, but it ain't there. It doesn't exist.
yeah. Something I was listening to this morning made me think about that, was about like and this is not you, I'm sure, and perhaps not the people on the call, but sometimes that's also like a delaying tactic as well, or it's part of the procrastination of getting into the broader sort of job market. You know, we are always trying to tell people that we work with, you know, see the job search as a pie chart, the CV and advertised roles. Yes, don't ignore that. It's one thing to try and get as right as possible, but there's a whole nother piece around people that are perhaps, you know, they're not as refined and focused as people give them credit for, either recruiters, hiring managers, or companies, about knowing who they want or what they want. And sometimes they can see someone out there and think, yes, this is the person we need. Making a contact via LinkedIn, you have a conversation, and that isn't pie in the sky. You know, how much does it happen in the scheme of things? You know, I wouldn't say it's the biggest percentage of that pie chart, but certainly a way to actually get across more people's radar would be to make sure you're prevalent on LinkedIn, make sure you're posting, you know, not just AI stuff, just do it from the heart, do it from your own kind of knowledge and experience. Speak to your chosen sector, or the one you're in, whatever it is, whatever you think about. Target audience is like marketing in a sense, really. Who do you want to read that piece? The reason that people don't do it, you know, or resist doing it, I should say, is if they're in a very hard-nosed, tangible role like finance, you know, doing the bit about the hidden job market piece, and oh, I'm going to build a better profile, I'm going to write some articles, and then maybe somebody will look at my profile, and maybe something will happen from it. It just seems a little bit intangible for some people. You know, it's certainly with our clients anyway. I can only talk about people not just this side of the pond, but or east and west. Have got very good roles, often the ones that are not advertised. Often things come left field, and you're still dealing with sort of human beings, you know, and so on at the end of the day. So I would just urge everyone to sort of start to have whether it's a once a week post, whether it's some kind of other strategy other than just looking at advertised roles and just doing the, you know, connect with a couple of recruiters and will you hear back, you know, and
that's a good, yeah.
All that, you know. But I would just say to do that anyway. Sorry, someone said, someone did not say, bias. Yes, okay.
That's me, Steve. Hi, it's Roz.
Yes,
Morning,
hi,
everyone.
Roz. Hi. How
Yeah.
are you?
It's just on that point with what Paul and Mark and Shahid have said. You know, in the current market, I've had colleagues and peers. It's been the most difficult market for the last 20 years, especially in that senior space. You know, I've had friends who've applied for 300 jobs and had no feedback, which is ridiculous, right? For someone who's experienced.
I would stop at about 100 at least.
Right. So not only are we, it's so important to do that multi-channel, that multi-thread with the LinkedIn. You don't actually have to create your own post, by the way. You can just like things or repost. So I use reposting for different areas that I'm interested in the technology space, and that keeps my profile active, and that's triggered connections from other recruiters. Hasn't necessarily, they didn't have a role, but it's created another network connection, which is quite helpful as well. And I don't do it enough. I am going to now target it, but the networking piece and the mentoring piece, I think, is really key. It's one of the probably the most important things to help make sure that you have got the right language, or if you want to check in, if you want to make sure that you're transferring to that particular industry or space, it is just so important. And LinkedIn will help you find those people. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody you don't know.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Okay.
No, it's fantastic. I think that's part and parcel of it. There is a strange thing with LinkedIn that it's don't connect with somebody unless you know them, and yet putting loads of faces in front of you saying, perhaps you want to connect with these people. So it's a strange one in many ways. I don't want to disagree with you, which is what people say when they're about to disagree with you about something, isn't it? But I mean that genuinely. It's that I think if you do your own post, even if it's once a week, and it's on a specific area of your thought leadership and expertise, you are demonstrating your thought leadership as well. So there's school for thought or food for thought on that front, really. The thing about liking, commenting, sharing, yeah, definitely so. And then aligning all of that with making sure you pop into your who's viewed my profile quite regularly, even more regularly if you're on a free account, because they'll just fall off the bottom of the of the list. But if you've got a premium account, then it's better. Just have a quick look at what someone's put in here. 1 second. Yes, okay, yes. So someone was just saying about yeah, so knowing a number of senior people who worked in the banking sector, got senior level positions in councils and NHS and things like that. By the way, if you ever go down the public sector route, and you're in the UK, that is, you may know the interview process is quite different. You're kind of being scored, and it's sort of out of 5 every question or whatever it might be. So it's a kind of a different slightly sort of box ticking process with public sector, but you've just got to make sure that you're hitting all the spaces if you do go down that route. So if you just give one good answer, that might not be quite enough.
Just on that note, Steve Ross here again. A lot of the civil service sectors actually run Zoom workshops on their process and what they're looking for. So they're free workshops. So have a look, if you are looking at civil service jobs, have a look at their site. They do actually offer in their candidate job description, they offer free sessions. So where you can meet the hiring person, learn more about the job, learn about what their actual assessment process, so all of the KPI metrics and everything.
Fantastic. That's really great. No, that's really great. That's really great to know. I had not heard that before. I thought it was some kind of almost a science you had to work out yourself. So it's great. It's great that there is a bit of help involved.
It's government. Of course, there's a process.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But there's a reason the public sector do that. That's to ensure that every candidate is asked the same question. So there could be no bias in it. Demonstrated there's no bias. So that they have preset questions. And I do the same when I'm hiring too, or get my staff and I'm in those positions. So you can demonstrate you've asked every candidate the same question, and you score them on the answers to those questions, instead of a different interview that goes down a different path with everybody.
Yes, it's interesting, and I think that for anyone who's interested in doing that, I know people who've gone from, well, certainly in health anyway, from private to public, and then back again, and then maybe back again. So there's a lot of experience about the different kind of processes and about the different ways to handle these things. I mean, is anyone actually in the middle of going for something that's totally outside of their chosen sector at the moment, or is it more about just the general job search from your own perspectives? You're not muted, Shahid. That's not a problem, but I didn't know whether it meant you wanted to ask a question or not.
No, I was just going to reply to your point. Yeah, at the moment, funnily, just something came up yesterday where I've had a bit of a touch with the charitable sector, where I've done sort of trustee roles, other things, but this is a paid finance role, and it's an interesting one because, you know, like a couple of people on the call, qualified accountants, but I haven't practiced accountancy for about 25 years. I've been a change specialist and an IT specialist. So it's actually quite interesting, and it's just something I'm bubbling over in my head. There's an active dialogue going on, and there seems to be a level of interest, but it's like, should I take the plunge and do it or not? It's a debate that's going through my head at the moment.
Yes.
So that's, I'll discover more later on today, but it was an interesting conversation. And I think on the back of someone who I've worked with, who does a lot of placement in social enterprise, worked with 5 years ago, just thought, you know, they'd reach out purely by chance. You know, it's an interesting one, but yeah, there are those gems of people out there who do occasionally think that human beings have talents outside what's in that black and white bit on the CV.
Yes, gives you a little bit of faith in humanity. I mean, let me know how that goes. Drop me a message.
I'll drop you a note afterwards. Yeah,
we can have a bit of an email, exchange or whatever you like. Really, I'm always interested to know how people get on with those kind of different kind of approaches. Definitely so.
So Shahid, if you don't know David Levinson, I would suggest you speak to him, because he's a chartered accountant, mentor, coach, spent 10 years or so in public sector roles. So he's a really good sounding board for how to present yourself. He's a mentor for the ICAEW.
Okay. Not my profession, but, you know, due respect.
No, I mean, again,
that was a jokey comment. Apologies, I didn't mean to.
But
yeah, no,
but
that's
again,
helpful.
but again, some charities are looking for change and transformation because they've grown and they need to change, and others are looking for governance. Right?
Sure.
So it's a bit like if
absolutely.
you turn up as a change person for a governance role, you're not going to be looked at as well as someone who specializes in governance.
Governance, absolutely.
So
yeah, no, I'll have a look for David. Is there a particular moniker that he goes under?
David Levinson, the high performing boardroom coach.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I mean, if you ping me something on LinkedIn, just connection, you'll find him in my first level connections.
I'll do that. Paul, thank you.
And I'm Paul Williams online. That's my
yeah.
LinkedIn.
No, I'd already made a note of that, Paul. I was going to reach out separately anyway.
There are 4,000 Paul Williamses on LinkedIn in the UK. So
how do you identify yourself as the single one?
Paul Williams online is and I own the domain name.
Okay, I shall find you.
Always good to have a domain name. That's the other thing.
I'm portfolio CFO. Paul Williams, portfolio CFO.
It would be good to connect. I'll reach out.
Right then, guys, that might be a good time. Has anyone got any further questions, thoughts, discussion points, or comments? Good discussion today. I think that was really interesting, guys. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. And remember, I'm always there for a bit of a one-to-one conversation. Should you choose to do that formally or informally? Always happy either way.
Brilliant.
So have a good rest of your day.
Cheers. Nice to see everyone.
Enjoy
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks,
Enjoy your
Steve.
days. Bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Take care.